Let's do gears now, everyone. Last week, President Muhammadu Buhari wrote to National Assembly seeking approval to borrow $4 billion US dollars and 710 million euros from bilateral and multilateral organizations to fund the deficit in the 2021 budget. According to the letter, which was read on the floor of the National Assembly on both chambers, the President and the Speaker of the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives says that the loan request is an addendum to the 2018-2020 borrowing plan of the federal government. President Buhari was also seeking approval for grant components of $125 million. Further explained that the need to borrow more funds is to meet emerging needs and ensure that all critical projects approved by the Federal Executive Council as at June 2021 are incorporated. Also, Nigeria's inflation slowed in August for a fifth straight month to 17.01% after the rate at which food prices increased fell. Figures from the National Bureau of Statistics shows a consistent decline. That came after days of revelation that the GDP has grown by 4%, but the Naira keep weakening. What a dynamic. Let's get a sense of some of these stories for you. I'm being joined by a professor of political economics, Professor Pat Utomi. He joins us from Ikoyi area of Lagos. Thank you so much, Prof. It's good to see you. And thank you so much for coming on the program tonight. Let me first and foremost get your view on the state of the economy. First, on the recent request for loans, has the federal government committed any misdoing wanting to borrow more money?
Well, Sheikh, the first thing that I want to say is that our country is going through a very trying period. This is a time for statesmen to emerge and not people who argue partisan positions on things. Our challenge is very, very clear and simple. The Nigerian economy, in spite of the 4% that you mentioned, is not growing in any way or shape that can accommodate its needs as a country. The kind of population growth rates that we have, the place that we are located today, on the scale of poor countries, I guess we've been called the poverty capital of the world. It means that in terms of absolute numbers of people who are living in absolute poverty, this is one of the most terrible places to live on earth. So let's bear this in mind and focus our conversation. Now, coming to the debate that's been going on over whether borrowing is reckless, reasonable, and justifiable. Some people are trying to justify why not, why not. I think that we are not putting things properly in context. Well, first of all, you can justify anything with statistics. You know what they say, there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics. So let's get the whole statistics thing out of the way and just think and be logical. And let's also bear history in mind. It is not the first time in our history that we have been in these kinds of dire straits. So let's draw lessons from that historic track and use it to reflect on what we need to do. In terms of the statistics that are being bandied about, yes, in an absolute sense, the fact of borrowing $4 billion is not necessarily something that will kill Nigeria. Even though if you look at how much of our revenues are now going into servicing debt, you have to worry. Now, however, there's a converse point here. This country needs to grow like crazy, and it cannot grow unless you invest. So the real issue is the targeting of borrowed funds. Am I convinced that the targeting is enough to drive the kind of growth that will facilitate amortization of this and enable the economy to be able to grow in a sustainable manner? I'm not being given enough information to believe that that is the case. You know, back in the 70s, when General Obasanjo was head of state, oil price volatility, and let's be very frank, part of the reason where we are is that oil price drops during the heat of last year, compounded, of course, by supply chain challenges brought about by the lockdown of COVID, led to revenue shortfalls of a significant nature. Because we have failed to do something we have advertised that we're doing literally every year for the last 30-something years, which is to diversify the base of the Nigerian economy. Do I see a plan that shows me that these borrowings will facilitate that diversification of the base of the Nigerian economy? My straight answer to you is no, I don't see that plan. I think that we have to develop a clear national strategy. If we have a clear national strategy which looks at how growth can take place in a sustainable manner in this economy, then we can borrow. We can borrow twice, 3 times as much as we are borrowing now, and I won't be afraid. What I'm afraid of is that we're likely to just borrow to fill the needs of the moment in terms of meeting our recurrent expenditure challenges of now. And then we're in a deeper problem. When we had similar challenges in the 70s, what happened at that time was, first of all, we'd had, of course, oil prices going up. We believed we could do many things. Even the Western banks were telling us that we were under-borrowed. I still remember General Obasanjo sending off General Oluleye, who was Minister of Finance, was then called Federal Commissioner for Finance, to go off in search of jumbo loans. And some people screamed at that time, look, what is this we're doing? I said, no, we're under leveraged, we're under borrowed, we're, our capacity, of course, looking at oil income, our capacity to service those loans was supposed to be there. But what happened? We're suddenly in a debt trap. It's an irony that it took General Obasanjo returning to power many years after to work to get rid of the overcast from the debt trap that we fell into.
All right, Prof.
As a result of thinking under him.
Let me just ask some 2 or 3 straight questions. Are we in another debt trap right now?
We seem to be moving into one. If we don't, look, I was talking to the first debt trap, and the way that General Obasanjo reacted to it, which was very appropriate, he immediately recognized, one, that you had to cut expenditure deep and dramatic. And it came both in real cuts and in symbolic cuts. I remember his famous statement back in the 70s that we're going to cut our coat, not according to our size, but according to our cloth. He made sure that executive protocols were completely sliced off. The head of state, his official car was a Peugeot 504, and nobody in the public service went beyond that point.
So, Prof,
those were both symbolic and appropriate.
So those kind of measures that happen.
But do you see any savings right now?
Yeah, so the question is that, what would you prefer right now to fix? You said we are gradually walking into another debt trap. What would you prefer as a solution for us not to enter into another debt trap?
Okay, a couple of things. First, we have to trim the cost of government dramatically. We have to take the Oronsaye report and begin to implement it with seriousness. We've got to cut the frills. All the motorcades, all the rubbish that goes on in the name of power and governance needs to be gotten rid of. And when we reduce our costs, first, the people we are going to try to borrow money from will see that we are serious. That's why IMF has conditionalities, because they don't want you coming to borrow money and being profligate with the money that you have borrowed, because your ability to service that money is impaired. So, dramatic cost reduction in governance, a clear national strategy, growth strategy. I have advocated, without fail, a strategy that is based on our latent comparative advantage and developing industrial policy around certain value chains, which we hope to dominate globally, and that would diversify the base of this economy. And there's a lot of talk, we're giving money to agriculture, giving money to that. Most of the serious entrepreneurs that I know in these sectors are getting nothing. Every time you meet them, they say they're getting nothing. So it's either somehow there's a misallocation, or whoever is getting it are not the people who are going to create long-term wealth. Maybe they're people who have power. But we need to essentially be clear about our national strategy, focus on production, and production.
Let me ask you another question, and I'm not trying to drag you into any political bias conversation. Now, I'm trying to us get a national conversation. And the question is, with the indices that we have, the GDP growth, the inflation, in fact, some of the analysts have they predicted about 2% of GDP, we got about 5%. How would you rate the handling of the economy under this government? Will you rate it high or low?
Well, Shehu, I think that you're stepping right into what you say you don't want to do. The point of the matter is that we have a national economic emergency. It's not a matter of who handled it, how did they handle it.
No, but I just wanted to know that sometimes, you know, when you're in a crisis situation, whether or not the handlers are doing the right thing, or we are just in a panic mode and we are going down the slope. I just wanted to...
I would handle it. I would handle it differently, but who says that my handling will be better, but it will be different for sure? I definitely will handle it differently.
So, but in this kind of emergency that we are in, what would you suggest as perhaps the most important thing, one single thing that needs to be done first and foremost, perhaps that this government is not doing? What would that be?
Well, I would say I've made the point about national strategy. That's very important. I still don't see a clear national growth strategy. We've entered the fourth industrial revolution. What is the way we are realigning and aligning our economy to the future? We see that we are in energy transition era. Is this economy really prepared for energy transition? Does it really act like a country that understands where crude oil will be in 20 years? All of these things frighten me because we are misaligned. We are not thinking in the direction that will give our children a better tomorrow that they deserve. That's what I perceive, and I can be wrong, but let somebody else show me why I'm wrong, and let's have a rational public conversation, not a debate about you agree, we don't, partisan, you know, that's not, you know.
I have one more question for you, Prof, but I need to quickly take a commercial break, and I'll be right back to throw that question. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's close the program now, but before we do that, there's one question I'd like Professor Pat Utomi to answer or to respond to. Prof, I'd like you to listen to what Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed said, perhaps a reaction to what the Southern governor said about 2023 presidency. And this is a reaction of Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed. Quickly, let's take a listen to him.
We lead Nigeria the way we have led Nigeria before. Whether we are president or vice president or whatever, we will lead Nigeria. Not because we are better than anybody else, but because if you are doing a democratic game, the votes say vote who you want. We have the majority of the votes. Why do we need to accept a second-class position when we can fight for and get a first-class position? Why? Why does anybody need to threaten us and cajole us?
Prof, just in about 60 seconds, if you may, I'd like to get your view. The Southern governor said the presidency should go to the South in 2023, but listen, you've heard what Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed said.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I have the full context. Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed is a friend of mine, and I've had many conversations with him, and I'm not sure that he is anti-democratic. It would be dangerous for us to begin to slice this country into we have a majority. Who are we? We means who? It means people who align with a particular point of view, and they can come from anywhere in Nigeria. So I don't think that Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed saying we have a majority makes a lot of sense in the way that I understand democracy. If you begin to slice and dash on ethnic basis, it can be shown that the North is not a monolith, and that in fact, the North, as we perceive it, might turn out to be a major minority in Nigeria, because the North can be fractured into so many ethnicities that you can't think of the North as an ethnic bulk. And alignment can take place in Nigeria that can isolate those that think they're a majority into a minor minority. So I'm sure that's not what he means, because he's too smart to think that way.
Professor Pat Utomi, political economist, it's always a pleasure having you speak on some of these very critical national issues. I must sincerely appreciate you for your time tonight. Thank you so much, Prof.
Pleasure's mine.
Thank you. And that's how we draw the curtain tonight on the program. Many thanks, everyone, for watching. I'm Sean Kimbale. Bye-bye.